The shuttle docked with a low hum, and Kira Vasquez stepped onto Crucible Prime for the first time. The orbital station was massive. It stretched out in every direction like a small city floating in space. Thousands of alien cadets walked through its halls, and not one of them looked like her. She was the first human ever admitted to the Galactic Coalition Military Academy. Humanity had only been traveling between stars for 40 years. Most species in the Coalition had been doing it for thousands. To them, humans were newcomers, infants, a curiosity at best. Kira was 22 years old. She was not tall, she was not wide. She did not have claws or armor plating or 4 arms. She had brown skin, dark eyes, and hands that were rough from years of training. Her mother had been a Muay Thai champion back on Earth. Her father had been a Marine sergeant. They had raised her in small gyms and on hard floors, and they had taught her one thing above everything else: how to take a hit and keep moving. She carried a single bag over her shoulder as she walked through the main corridor. Aliens of every shape towered over her. Some had scales. Some had extra limbs. Some moved on legs that bent the wrong way. A few glanced at her and then looked away, uninterested. Others stared with open confusion, as if wondering how such a small creature had ended up here. The induction ceremony was held in a great hall with a domed ceiling made of transparent metal. Stars burned beyond it. Hundreds of cadets stood in rows, organized by species. Kira stood alone in her row. She was the only human. The academy commander, a massive creature covered in gray plates, gave a speech about honor and duty. Kira listened quietly. She understood about half the words. Her translator implant was still adjusting. When the ceremony ended, the cadets began to mix. That was when she saw him for the first time. Torvak Dren was impossible to miss. He stood over 7 feet tall, with 4 muscular arms and skin covered in bone-colored plates. His legs bent backward at the knee, built for explosive speed. His eyes were gold and narrow, and they carried the look of something that had never once doubted its place at the top. He was Kelvari, a species from a low-gravity world where the predators grew large and fast and ruled without question. Torvak was an alpha, the highest rank in their social order. He had been the top combat cadet at the academy for 3 years running. No one had ever beaten him. He noticed Kira almost immediately. It was hard not to. She was the smallest person in the hall. He walked over with 2 of his packmates behind him. The crowd parted for him without being asked. He stopped in front of Kira and looked down at her the way someone might look at a stain on their boot. "So," he said, his voice deep and rumbling through the translator, "this is the human." Kira looked up at him. She said nothing. "I heard your species comes from a heavy world," he continued, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "A world that crushes you from birth, and yet you are still so small." He tilted his head. "Tell me, little gravity-stunted scavenger, do humans even fight? Or do you just run and hide and wait for the real predators to finish eating?" Laughter spread through the crowd, not from everyone but from enough. Kira held his gaze. Her expression did not change. "I fight," she said simply. Torvak snorted. "We will see." He turned and walked away, and his packmates followed. The laughter faded slowly. A few aliens looked at Kira with something close to pity. She ignored them all. She was assigned to the lowest combat tier. Her gear was second-hand and poorly fitted. Her dormitory was a converted storage room at the end of a hallway that smelled like engine coolant. The bed was too short for most species but slightly too long for her. She did not complain about any of it. Her first training match came 3 days later. She was paired against a Drellic cadet, a species built like a walking boulder, with thick limbs and dense muscle. He outweighed her by at least 300 pounds. The match lasted 4 minutes. Kira lost. But something strange happened during those 4 minutes. The Drellic hit her hard once, twice, 3 times. Each time she went down. Each time she got back up. And each time she rose, she moved a little differently. She changed her angle. She adjusted her distance. She stopped trying the same thing twice. In the final minute, she nearly reached a nerve cluster behind his left shoulder, a weak point that should have been impossible for her to know about. The Drellic blocked it barely in time and ended the match with a heavy shove that sent her sliding across the floor. Afterward, in the recovery room, the Drellic spoke quietly to a friend. "The human," he said, "she moved wrong." Wrong how? She was not fighting to win, she was fighting to learn. Nobody paid attention to this comment. Nobody except Instructor Jael. Jael was a Vreth, an ancient species with 6 eyes, a scarred face, and a body that looked like it had been broken and rebuilt several times. She had trained warriors at the academy for over 100 years. She had seen every fighting style the galaxy had to offer. Very little surprised her anymore. But that night she pulled up the recording of Kira's match. She watched it 3 times. On the third viewing, she paused on a single frame, a close-up of Kira's face in the moment after she was knocked down for the second time. Most cadets showed pain in that moment, or fear, or anger. Kira's eyes showed none of those things. They showed focus. Cold, patient, calculating focus. She was not suffering, she was gathering information. Jael stared at that frame for a long time. Then she closed the file and said nothing to anyone. That same night, long after the station lights had dimmed, Kira made her way to the lower gravity gym. It was empty. The gravity was set to standard Earth levels, heavier than most species preferred. She wrapped her hands slowly. She set her feet on the hard floor, and she began to drill. The same kick, over and over. A spinning back kick, the one her mother had taught her when she was 6 years old on a cracked concrete floor in Houston. But she was not just repeating it. She was adjusting. Each time, she changed the angle slightly. She shifted the height of impact. She calculated for alien bone density, for Kelvari spinal plating, for the exact gap between the 3rd and 4th vertebral plate that she had memorized from a medical textbook she had stolen from the academy library. She kicked until her legs burned. She kicked until sweat dripped from her face onto the cold metal floor. She kicked until her muscles screamed for her to stop. She did not stop. Somewhere far above her, in the upper levels of the station, Torvak Dren slept peacefully in his luxury quarters, surrounded by trophies from battles he had already won. He had no idea what was coming. The weeks that followed were brutal. The academy did not care about comfort, it cared about results. Every cadet trained 6 days a week, combat drills, tactical simulations, endurance courses, and ranked matches that determined where each fighter stood. The weak fell behind. The strong climbed higher. Kira lost her first match against every new species she faced. The Vreth grappler pinned her in under a minute. The Torvan striker hit her so hard she blacked out for 3 seconds. The Nassari whip fighter cut her across the forearm before she even understood his range. She lost. She bled. She limped back to her storage room dormitory night after night with bruises that turned her brown skin purple and black. But something began to happen that no one expected. She never lost to the same species twice. The second time she faced a Vreth, she slipped every grapple attempt and struck the nerve bundle under his second jaw. He collapsed. The second time she fought a Torvan, she stayed inside his reach where his long arms could not build power and drove her elbow into the soft tissue behind his chest plate. He folded like paper. The second time she met the Nassari, she caught his whip arm at the wrist and twisted until the joint popped. One by one she climbed the combat tiers, not fast, not with flash or spectacle, but steady like water rising. The other cadets began to talk. "She is different every time," a Drellic told his training partner after watching her dismantle a Pelori twice her size. "I have never seen a species that changes its fighting style between matches." This was the thing the galaxy did not understand about humans. Every other species had a way of fighting. The Kelvari were power strikers. The Vreth were grapplers. The Drellic were tanks who absorbed damage and crushed opponents with weight. Each species leaned on its natural advantages and refined them over centuries. Humans had no natural advantages. No claws, no venom, no armor. No extra limbs. They had spent their entire evolutionary history being weaker and slower than almost everything on their planet. So they had learned to do something far more dangerous. They adapted. They watched. They studied. And then they became whatever they needed to be. Kira fought like a ghost against the fast species. She fought like a wall against the aggressive ones. She fought like a surgeon against the armored ones. No two fights looked the same, and that made her impossible to prepare for. At night, while the station slept, she continued her real work. She borrowed medical textbooks from Ren, a small and nervous Pelori engineering cadet who had become her only friend. Ren did not understand why a combat student needed to study alien anatomy with the focus of a doctor, but he brought her the books anyway, because Kira was the only person on the station who had never once looked at him like he was beneath her. She memorized everything: pressure points, joint angles, nerve pathways, organ placements. She learned where every species in the academy was strong and, more importantly, where they were weak. Torvek watched all of this from above, and he was not impressed. He had won his latest ranked match in 11 seconds, a new academy record. His packmates celebrated loudly in the dining hall while Kira ate alone in the corner, reading a borrowed anatomy file on her data pad. He made it his business to remind her where she belonged. His packmates began showing up wherever she went. They blocked her path in hallways. They accidentally broke her training equipment. They poured liquid on her data pad, destroying 2 weeks of notes. Once, Torvek himself shouldered her into a wall as he passed, hard enough to leave a bruise across her entire left side. He gave her a nickname, Keth. In the Kelvari language, it meant the sound that prey made just before it died. His followers repeated it whenever she walked by. It echoed through the corridors like a curse. Ren begged her to report the harassment. The academy had rules against this kind of behavior. There were processes. There were protections. Kira refused. "I am not here to file reports," she told him quietly while icing her bruised shoulder in her tiny room. "I am here for something else." Ren did not ask what that something else was. The look in her eyes told him he did not want to know. In the 5th week, something happened in a tactics lecture that nobody forgot. The instructor, an old Pelori strategist, was teaching a lesson on species advantages in combat. He projected a list of natural weapons for each species: Kelvari bone plating and forearmed striking, Vreth grappling limbs, Drelic impact resistance, Torvan reach and speed. When he reached humans, the slide was nearly empty. No natural weapons, no armor, no venom, just a note that read, Class 12 Deathworld origin, high gravity adaptation, endurance persistence predator. "Can anyone explain," the instructor asked the room, "how a species with no natural weapons survived on one of the most dangerous planets ever recorded?" Silence. Kira raised her hand. The instructor looked surprised but nodded. She stood, every eye in the room turned to her, the smallest figure in a hall full of warriors. "We did not need natural weapons," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Everything on our planet was faster than us, stronger than us, had bigger teeth and sharper claws, but we had 2 things they did not." She paused. "We could think, and we never stopped getting back up." The room was silent for a long moment, not the mocking silence of the induction ceremony, a different kind. The kind that comes when something true has been spoken and everyone feels it but no one wants to admit it. Torvek broke the silence with a loud snort from the back row. "Pretty words from a species that bleeds when you flick them," he said. His packmates laughed. Kira sat down without responding, but Instructor Jael, who had been observing from the doorway, did not laugh at all. After class, Jael called Kira into her office. The old Vreth sat behind a desk covered in scars that matched the ones on her body. Her 6 eyes studied Kira the way a scientist studies something under glass. "I have been assigning you harder opponents," Jael said. "You know this." "Yes," Kira said. "You know it is not punishment." "Yes." Jael leaned forward. "Your match yesterday. The Torvan broke 2 of your fingers before you took him down. What did you learn?" Kira did not hesitate. His species drops their guard on the left side when they commit to a high strike. Their secondary tendon in the knee is exposed during a forward lunge. Their pain threshold is high, but their balance depends on their tail, and the tail base is unarmored. Jael stared at her, 6 eyes unblinking. "You learned all of that while he was breaking your fingers." "Pain is just information," Kira said. "My mother taught me that." Jael was quiet for a long time. Then she dismissed Kira with a wave of her scarred hand. But after the human left, Jael sat alone in her office and did something she had not done in 30 years of teaching. She smiled. 2 days later, the Academy channels exploded with news. Torvak Dren had invoked the Kahalthresh, an ancient Kelvari honor rite that allowed an alpha to challenge any cadet to a ranked exhibition match. By tradition, refusal meant immediate expulsion. There was no way out. He had challenged Kira. The message was broadcast station-wide. Torvak stood before the press drones with his 4 arms crossed and his gold eyes gleaming. "I will show the galaxy what happens when vermin reach above their station," he declared. The odds were set within the hour, 40-1 against the human. Ren found Kira in the lower gym, wrapping her hands in the dim light. His small body was shaking. "You cannot fight him," he said. "He will kill you. He has broken bones in every match he has ever fought. He has put cadets in medical pods for weeks. You cannot." "I accept," Kira said, not to Ren, but to the official challenge notification blinking on her data pad. She pressed the button, the acceptance registered, the station hummed with the news. Ren sank onto a bench and put his head in his hands. Kira finished wrapping her hands and returned to her work. The same kick, the same angle, the same target. She had been preparing for this moment since the day she arrived. The exhibition match was set for 7 days out. In that time, Crucible Prime became a place divided. On one side stood the overwhelming majority, those who believed Torvak would destroy the human in minutes, maybe seconds. On the other side stood almost no one. Kira trained in silence. She did not give interviews to the press drones that followed her through the corridors. She did not respond to the hundreds of messages flooding her data pad, some wishing her luck, most telling her to withdraw before it was too late. She simply trained. But her training had changed. She was no longer drilling technique the way other cadets did. She had stopped sparring entirely. Instead, she spent hours in her tiny room watching footage. Footage of Torvak. Every match he had fought in the last 3 years was stored in the Academy archive. Kira downloaded all of them. She watched each one at full speed, then at half speed, then frame by frame. She studied the way he planted his feet before a strike. She tracked the rhythm of his 4 arms, which one led, which one followed, which one he used for defense, and which one he forgot about when his temper rose. She noticed things that no one else had bothered to look for, because no one had ever needed to. Torvak was so dominant that studying him felt pointless. Why learn the habits of a hurricane? You simply got out of its way. But Kira was not built to get out of the way. She noticed that when Torvak committed to his overhead slam, his signature finishing move, he rose onto the balls of his feet and leaned slightly forward. For exactly 1/2 second, his center of balance shifted high. In that half second, his lower spine was exposed. Not much. Just a sliver of space between the 3rd and 4th bone plates, where the natural armor thinned to allow flexibility. It was a gap no wider than 2 fingers. Most fighters would never see it. No fighter in the galaxy had ever tried to hit it. Kira intended to hit it with everything she had. On the fourth night before the match, Ren came to her room with his portable console and a look of deep worry on his narrow face. He had been running numbers. "I need to show you something," he said, setting the console on her desk. "I ran the biomechanical simulation, a human kick, even a trained one against Kelvari alpha bone plating." He pulled up the results. It should not work. Their plating is rated to resist standard kinetic weapon impacts. Your leg bones would break before his armor does. Kira looked at the numbers. "You are testing the wrong thing," she said. "What do you mean?" "You are testing a normal kick against the plate. I am not hitting the plate. I am hitting the gap, and I am not using a normal kick." She stood up and moved to the center of the room. There was barely enough space. She set her feet, lowered her hips, and turned her body slowly through the motion, a spinning back kick, delivered with the heel aimed at a precise point behind her. "This kick," she said quietly, "is not about the leg, it is about the whole body. The foot pushes off the ground, the hip turns, the core twists, the shoulder follows, every muscle fires in order and all the force travels to one point, the heel." She looked at Ren. "On Earth, a trained fighter can generate enough force with this kick to equal being hit by a ground vehicle. That is not an exaggeration. That is physics." Ren stared at her. Then he went back to his console and changed the simulation parameters. Instead of a broad strike against the plate, he modeled a focused impact, heel diameter only, against the vertebral gap, with the full rotational force of a human body trained since childhood. The simulation ran. The results appeared on screen. Ren's hands went still. The number glowed in red. The projected force was nearly 3 times what was needed to fracture Kelvari's spinal cartilage. "That is impossible," he whispered. "No," Kira said, "that is Earth." She explained it to him the way her mother had explained it to her, long ago in a hot gym with cracked mirrors and the smell of old sweat. Humans evolved on a world where gravity pulled hard. Every step, every jump, every movement was a fight against the planet itself. Over millions of years, human muscles developed the ability to store elastic energy and release it in explosive bursts. Their tendons acted like springs. Their hips generated rotational power that no low-gravity species could match. The galaxy had overlooked this because humans looked soft from the outside. No armor, no claws, no visible weapons. But inside, beneath the skin, was a body built by the cruelest trainer in the universe, gravity itself. "My mother used to say something," Kira told Ren. "The kick is not in your leg, it is in the ground. You borrow from the planet, and you give it all to one point." Ren was quiet for a long time. Then he said, very softly, "I think I understand now why your species scares me." On the 5th night, the human ambassador tried to have the match cancelled. He sent an emergency petition to the Academy commander, arguing that allowing an unranked human cadet to face the top Kelvari Alpha was reckless and dangerous. A death in the arena could damage human coalition relations for decades. The Kelvari ambassador sent his own message, pushing for the match to continue. His people wanted the demonstration. They wanted the galaxy to see Kelvari dominance confirmed in blood. Instructor Jael blocked both petitions. She filed a single-line response to the Academy commander. The cadet accepted under the rules of the Kahlthresh. The ring decides, not politicians. The match stayed on. On the 6th night, the night before the fight, Torvak came to Kira's quarters. He had to bend almost in half to fit through her door. He filled the tiny room like a storm filling a bottle. He expected to find her packing, shaking, maybe crying. He had seen it before. Cadets who accepted challenges they could not win often broke down the night before, and he enjoyed watching it happen. Instead, he found her sitting calmly on the edge of her bed, wrapping cloth strips around her hands in slow, even loops. Her breathing was steady. Her eyes were clear. She looked up at him and said nothing. Tomorrow, Torvek said, his deep voice filling the small space, I am going to break you in front of the entire galaxy. I want you to understand that, not because I hate you, but because you need to learn what you are. You are Keth. You are the sound before silence. And when I am done with you, every human who dreams of coming here will think twice. Kira finished wrapping her left hand. She started on her right. Is that all? She asked. The question caught him off guard. He had prepared for tears, for begging, for rage. He had not prepared for a human woman sitting in a closet, wrapping her hands like she was getting ready for a morning workout, asking him if he was finished talking. Something shifted in his chest. It was not fear. Torvak Dren had never felt fear, but it was something close to it, something cold and unfamiliar. He looked into her dark eyes and saw no panic, no submission, no hope for mercy. He saw what his ancestors had seen when they looked across the plains of their homeworld and spotted a predator watching them from the tall grass. Not a predator that would chase them, a predator that was waiting. He left without another word. Back in his quarters, he told his packmates the human was already broken and the fight would be quick. They cheered and drank and celebrated the victory before it happened. Torvak did not drink. He sat alone by his window and looked out at the stars and tried to forget the way her eyes had looked in that tiny room. He could not. The next morning the arena filled to its limit. Every seat was taken. Cadets, instructors, officers, diplomats, and press drones packed the observation levels until the walls groaned. The broadcast went live across Coalition space. Billions watched. Torvak walked out first to a roar that shook the floor. He raised all 4 arms and the crowd screamed louder. He was magnificent. He was terrifying. He was everything the galaxy believed a warrior should be. Then Kira walked out. She was small. She was silent. She wore standard Academy fighting gear that hung slightly loose on her frame. Her hands were wrapped in plain white cloth. She looked at no one in the crowd. She looked only at the ring. The arena fell quiet, not out of respect, out of something closer to pity. Instructor Jael stood at the center of the ring. Her 6 eyes moved between the 2 fighters. She raised one scarred hand. "Begin," she said. And the bell sounded. Torvak moved first. He crossed the distance between them in less than a second. His legs, built for bursts of explosive speed, launched him forward like a bolt of living metal. His lower right arm swung in a wide arc aimed at her ribs. It was not his strongest punch. It was a test, a way to measure her reaction, to see how fast the prey could run before he ended things. Kira did not run. She shifted her weight to the left, let the fist pass her by a narrow margin and reset her stance. She did not counter. She did not strike. She simply moved and then went still again. Torvak paused. Then he came again, faster this time. Both upper arms struck together in a double hammer fist aimed at her collarbone. It was a blow meant to drop an opponent to their knees. It connected. Kira's body buckled. She stumbled backward 2 steps. Pain ripped through her shoulder and down her arm. The crowd roared. Torvak's packmates stood and beat their fists against the railings. But she did not fall. She shook her arm, rolled her shoulder once, and raised her guard again. Her eyes never left him, not once. Torvak frowned. He had felt the impact. The blow had landed clean. Most species would have dropped. The human was still standing, and she was still watching him with those dark, steady eyes. He attacked again. This time he used all 4 arms in rapid sequence, high, low, a pattern designed to overwhelm. Each strike carried the force of his massive frame and the speed of his predator genetics. He was faster than anything Kira had ever faced. She could not dodge them all. A fist caught her in the side. Another clipped her jaw and sent her spinning. A third drove into her stomach and folded her in half. She hit the floor hard, and the arena shook with cheering. Blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. She wiped it with the back of her wrapped hand, and then she stood up. The cheering faltered slightly, just slightly. "Stay down, Keth," Torvik growled, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. The crowd laughed. Kira said nothing. She set her feet and raised her guard. He hit her again. She went down again. She stood up again. He hit her a third time. She fell. She rose. A murmur began to ripple through the audience. This was not a fight anymore. This was something else, something unsettling. The human was bleeding from her lip and above her eye. Her left arm hung slightly wrong, but she kept standing and there was no fear in her face, no desperation, no begging for the referee to stop the match. There was only patience. The first round ended. Kira returned to her corner where there was no team, no coach, no one to treat her wounds. Just Ren, leaning over the railing from the front row, his face twisted with fear. "Kira, please," he whispered. "He is too strong." She spat blood onto the floor. "He is too predictable," she said. The second round began, and everything changed. Torvik charged again, expecting the same pattern, the human absorbing damage, retreating, surviving. But this time, Kira moved forward. She slipped under his lead arm and drove her right elbow into the joint of his lower left arm. The strike was short and sharp, and aimed at a nerve cluster that most species did not even know existed. Torvik grunted. His lower left arm dropped to his side, tingling and half numb. The crowd went quiet. Kira did not celebrate. She circled. Torvik shook his arm, trying to bring feeling back. He swung at her with his upper right. She ducked it and drove her knee into the soft tissue above his hip, below the edge of his bone plating. He stumbled sideways only half a step, but for the first time in the fight, it was him who moved backward. A whisper ran through the arena. Something was wrong. Something was different. The human was not just surviving anymore. She was hitting targets that should not have been possible for her to know about. But Kira had spent weeks studying Kelvari anatomy. She knew every nerve, every joint, every gap in the armor. She was not fighting blind. She was operating with a map that she had drawn herself, night after night, in a storage closet that smelled like engine coolant. Torvik snarled. His pride ignited. He stopped testing and started fighting for real. His speed doubled. His strikes became savage. He drove Kira across the ring with a series of blows that would have killed a weaker species. A strike to her ribs produced a cracking sound that made Ren cover his ears. Something had broken inside her. She staggered. Her breathing changed, shorter, sharper, ragged, broken ribs at least two. But she did not stop. She could not stop. Humans were persistent predators. Their ancestors had chased animals across the plains of Africa for hours, for days, until the prey simply collapsed from exhaustion. The human body was not designed to quit. It was designed to keep going long after every rational signal said to stop. Torvik pressed forward, sensing victory. He cornered her against the arena wall and prepared his finishing move, the overhead slam. All four arms raised above his head, combining their force into a single downward strike that had ended every match he had ever fought. It was devastating. It was final. And it required him to rise onto the balls of his feet. Kira saw it. She had been waiting for it since the first bell. Every hit she had taken, every retreat, every moment of patience had been building toward this single opening. He rose, his arms went up, his weight shifted forward and high, and for exactly 1/2 second the gap between his third and fourth spinal plates was exposed. Kira stepped into him. The overhead slam came down. She twisted sideways, and the full force of the blow glanced off her shoulder and back instead of landing clean on her skull. The impact was still enormous. She felt something tear in her shoulder. White light flashed behind her eyes. The pain was beyond anything she had ever experienced. But she was inside his guard now, closer than any opponent had ever been to a Kelvari Alpha in the middle of his finishing strike. Close enough to smell the heat coming off his bone plates, close enough to see the gap in his armor, exactly where she knew it would be. She planted her left foot on the arena floor. She turned her hip. Her core twisted. Her shoulder followed. Every muscle in her body fired in the order her mother had taught her: ground, hip, core, shoulder, heel. Millions of years of Deathworld evolution compressed into a single rotating strike. She borrowed from the gravity of every heavy world humanity had ever walked on, and she gave it all to one point. Her heel hit the gap between the third and fourth vertebral plates of Torvak Dren's spine. The sound was unlike anything the arena had ever heard. It was not a thud. It was not a slap. It was a crack, deep, sharp and final, like a stone splitting in half. It echoed off the walls and the ceiling and seemed to hang in the air like a living thing. Torvak's gold eyes went wide. His forearms froze mid-motion. His legs, those powerful backward-bending legs built for speed and dominance, folded beneath him like they had been switched off. His massive body tilted forward and he fell. He hit the arena floor face first with a crash that sent vibrations through the metal plating. He did not move. He did not twitch. He lay perfectly still, and the silence that followed was the loudest thing anyone had ever heard. No one breathed. The press drones hovered in place, their lenses locked on the two figures in the ring, the giant on the ground and the small human standing over him, swaying slightly, blood on her face, her left arm hanging useless, her ribs grinding with every breath. Then Ren screamed, a raw, uncontrolled sound of shock and joy that broke the silence like a rock through glass. The four other humans in the stands, embassy staff who had come to watch, leaped to their feet and shouted. And then the arena erupted. Not all of it was cheering. Some of it was disbelief. Some of it was horror. A Kelvari Alpha, undefeated, armored, four-armed, bred for combat, had just been dropped by a single kick from a species that most of the galaxy considered barely worth noticing. Medical teams rushed into the ring. They surrounded Torvak and began scanning his spine. The readings came back and the medics exchanged glances that said everything. The third vertebral plate was fractured. The spinal column was compressed. He was alive, but he was not getting up on his own. Kira stood in the ring alone. She breathed in short, painful gasps, her vision blurred at the edges. She looked down at Torvak and felt no joy, no triumph, no rage. She bowed. A slow, deep bow, a human gesture that no one in the arena understood but everyone felt. It was not mockery. It was respect. The kind of respect that only a fighter can give to another fighter after a real battle. Then she turned and walked out of the ring, through the tunnel, and toward the medical wing. She walked under her own power. She did not let anyone carry her. Behind her, the arena continued to roar. And across coalition space, billions of viewers sat in stunned silence and began, for the first time, to wonder what else they had gotten wrong about humanity. The footage spread across coalition space like fire. Within hours, every major news network on every inhabited world was running the clip. The angle from the overhead drone was the one that went furthest, a wide shot showing the enormous Kelvari Alpha rising for his killing blow and the tiny human stepping into him instead of away. The kick, the crack, the fall, and then the small figure standing alone in the ring, bleeding and swaying, while the giant lay still on the floor. Analysts pulled the footage apart frame by frame. Military commentators ran the numbers and could not believe them. The force readings from the arena sensors showed that a single human leg had generated an impact equivalent to a light anti-armor round. Forums across the Galactic network filled with arguments. Some said it was faked. Some said it was a fluke. But the footage was clean, the sensors were calibrated, and the broken bone plates in Torvak's spine were very, very real. Kira spent 3 days in the medical wing. 2 broken ribs, a torn shoulder ligament, a hairline fracture in her left forearm, and deep bruising across most of her body. By Kelvari standards, these were minor injuries. By human standards, they were serious. But Kira had been hurt before. She let the medical pods do their work and spent her recovery time reading, not combat manuals, but a history of Kelvari honor culture that Ren had found for her. Torvak's injuries were worse. His third vertebral plate had cracked along its full width. His spinal column was compressed but not severed. The medical team had caught it in time. With advanced treatment, he would walk again within a week. He would fight again within a month. But the damage to his standing was something no medical pod could repair. In Kelvari culture, an alpha who was defeated by a lesser species faced a simple choice: challenge the victor to a death duel and reclaim honor, or accept permanent shame. There was no middle ground. His packmates expected the death challenge. His family back on the Kelvari homeworld demanded it. The Kelvari ambassador sent a formal message suggesting that anything less would be seen as a stain on the entire species. On the fourth day, Torvak left the medical wing and walked through the station corridors alone. His packmates tried to follow him. He told them to stay behind. They obeyed, but their eyes were uncertain. An alpha who walked alone was an alpha who had already made a decision his pack would not like. He found Kira in the common recovery room, sitting upright in a chair by the window with her arm in a stabilizing wrap. She was watching the stars. She looked small against the vast darkness outside, small and calm, and completely unbothered by the fact that the most dangerous warrior on the station was walking toward her. She turned her head when he entered. She did not flinch. She did not stand. She simply looked at him with the same steady expression she always wore. Torvak stopped a few paces away. He was still enormous. He still towered over her, but something about the distance between them had changed. It was no longer the distance between a predator and its prey. It was the distance between two fighters who had tested each other and found the truth. "When did you know?" he asked. His voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. "When did you know you could beat me?" Kira thought about it, not for long. "The first day," she said. "When you called me Keth in the hall, when you mocked me in front of everyone, you showed me something important." "What?" "That you had never studied humans. You did not know what we were. You did not know what our bodies could do. You looked at me and saw something small and soft, and you decided that was all there was." She paused. "That meant you would never see me coming." Torvak was silent. His gold eyes were still, and for once they held no arrogance, no anger, only the heavy weight of understanding. "What does Keth mean in your language?" he asked. "The sound prey makes before it dies. Do humans have a word for that?" Kira almost smiled. "Almost." "No," she said. "We do not have a word for the sound prey makes. On our world we were not the prey." The silence that followed was long and heavy. Torvak looked at her and she looked back, and something passed between them that neither of them had words for. It was not friendship. Not yet. But it was something. Then Torvak did the one thing that no one, not his pack, not his family, not his ambassador, not a single Kelvari in the history of their species, would have predicted. He lowered himself to one knee. He bent his great head forward and exposed the back of his neck, the place where a Kelvari's armor was thinnest. It was the gesture of absolute submission. The gesture a warrior made to the one who had proven themselves beyond all question. He held the position in silence. Kira stared at him. She understood what it meant. She had read about it the night before, in the history text Ren had given her. She knew that no Kelvari Alpha had performed this gesture in over 200 years. She knew it would end his career, his standing, his place in the pack order. She stood slowly, ignoring the pain in her ribs. She crossed the small distance between them, and she placed her hand gently, firmly on his shoulder. "Stand up," she said. He looked up at her. "I did not break you so you would kneel," she said. "I broke you so you would stop looking down." Torvak held her gaze for a long moment. Then slowly he rose to his full height. He did not speak. He did not need to. He turned and walked out of the room, and when his packmates saw his face, they knew that the death challenge would never come. The political aftershock arrived within days. Military analysts from dozens of coalition species began issuing urgent reassessments of humanity. What they found terrified them. Humans were not just tough. They were not just stubborn. They were something the galaxy had no framework for: a species that combined persistence, endurance, explosive force generation, rapid combat adaptation, and a psychological resilience that defied every known model. A classified coalition intelligence report was compiled and distributed to senior military officials. Most of it was technical, force calculations, endurance projections, adaptation rate modeling. But one line from the summary section was leaked to the press, and it became the most quoted sentence in galactic military history. Do not engage humans in sustained conflict. They do not weaken, they learn. The Academy promoted Kira out of the lowest combat tier and placed her directly into the top cohort, the first cadet ever to skip 6 tiers in a single move. Senior cadets who had once ignored her now stepped aside when she entered a room. Not out of fear, exactly. Out of the sudden awareness that they had been standing next to something extraordinary without realizing it. Kira did not let the attention change her. She continued to train in the lower gym after hours. She continued to study. She continued to watch and listen and learn. When junior cadets approached her for advice, she gave it freely and without ego. When press drones followed her, she ignored them. Instructor Jael requested a private meeting. They sat across from each other in Jael's scarred office, and for a while, neither of them spoke. Then Jael said something Kira did not expect. I fought a human once, a long time ago, before first contact was official, on a border world that neither of our species was supposed to be on. Kira went still. She was about your height, Jael continued. Same build, same hands. She fought the way you fight, like she had been watching me for years, even though we had only met that day. The old Vreth touched a scar on her jaw. She gave me this, and 3 others that I will not show you. Who won? Kira asked quietly. She did. Jael's 6 eyes locked onto hers. Her name was Elena Vasquez. She was your mother. The room was very quiet. I recommended your admission personally, Jael said. I wanted to see if lightning could strike twice. She paused. It struck harder. Kira said nothing, but her eyes glistened just slightly and she nodded once. 3 months later, a new intake of cadets arrived at Crucible Prime. The shuttle docked. The doors opened. Aliens of every species filed out and made their way through the main corridor, wide-eyed and nervous, just as every new class had done before them. Among them was a human, a lanky teenager with dark hair and a quiet face. He was from Sao Paulo, Earth. He carried a single bag, just as Kira had. He looked around at the towering aliens with the same mix of curiosity and calm that marked humans everywhere they went. But something was different this time. The alien cadets were staring at him, not with mockery, not with pity, not with confusion. They stared at him the way you stare at a closed door when you are not sure what is behind it. A Kelvari cadet, young, broad, freshly arrived, saw the human approaching in the corridor. Without thinking, without being told, the Kelvari stepped to the side and let him pass. Other aliens did the same. A path opened through the crowd, silent and automatic, like water parting around a stone. The teenager looked around, confused. He turned to the nearest alien, a Drellic twice his size, and asked, "Why is everyone staring at me?" The Drellic swallowed. His thick throat moved visibly. "You are human," he said, and the way he said it carried a weight that the teenager did not yet understand but would, in time, come to carry proudly. Far above, on the upper observation deck overlooking the arrival hall, Kira Vasquez stood with her arms resting on the railing. Her ribs had healed. Her shoulder was strong again. The bruises were gone, but she carried them in memory, the same way she carried every lesson she had ever learned, close and ready. She watched the new human cadet walk through the parting crowd, small and unaware of the door that she had kicked open for him. She thought about her mother. She thought about the cracked concrete floors of the gym in Houston. She thought about the sound of a bell and the silence that followed a single, perfect kick. And for the first time since she had set foot on this station, Kira Vasquez allowed herself to smile.